Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first CCTV basic product training on the ZKTeco CCTV products. My name is Edward Seaborn, and I am the product manager for the ZKTeco CCTV division. What we're going to do is we're going to basically be covering firstly our CCTV product range, features, benefits, etc. Then we're going to have a look at our product family, and lastly we're going to look at our VMS and our mobile app. I'm going to ask you to type your questions in the question box available to you, and then afterwards I will address all those questions individually. I will also have my email address at the end, whereby we can then get into contact with myself, and we can then work from there to address all the questions to those that have asked. So firstly, or part one, we've got a product range features. So as you can see on the screen, we have a range of products that's available to everybody in the market currently. We have our small bullet, we have our small eyeball, we have a large form dome, a large form bullet, a large form eyeball, and a range of PTZs, both small and large PTZs. The other thing that's important to notice is that the appearance of our cameras are unique, and that we have a very stylish and unique body design that's not readily available on the market. And I'm going to touch on a few aspects of our design and what we actually like to offer and what differentiates us from our competitors. So firstly, we have this unique unibody engineered design. So as you can see, it's a single aesthetically pleasing design. It is an IP67, which means that it's dust and waterproof. IP67 being for 30 minutes up to 1 meter in water. We're not going to be placing it in water, hopefully, because it's not an underwater camera, but it can withstand your rain and so forth. Our entire range is IP67. The next thing is that we have metal. So this is a metal body instead of the standard plastic that is plastic combination with metal in the industry. So this is quite a unique design, and it's not what's called a generic body design that's open to most manufacturers out there. This is a ZKTeco design product. The next thing that we want to look at is, why does the design lend itself to faster and easier installation of our products? So as you can see in the image, we have a Allen key single deadlock, which if I undo this Allen key nut, it allows me to rotate the camera in 360 degrees to get my image upright or the image selection. I can tilt the camera as I wish, and I can pan the camera as I wish. And then at the end of the time, I can basically lock this nut, and it will fix the camera into a position. This is both available on our eyeballs and on the bullets that's available to the market. This is also quite a unique and a very innovative design, part of the ZKTeco offering. The next part of the camera that I'd like to touch on is the transparency PC material, the front cover, the black cover that you see there. This is it's an important high quality material. It allows the penetration of light up to 90% higher than what's the industry standard, and it's also got an anti-light reflection cover, so that what happens is, basically, because I'm not reflecting any of the light away from the lens of the camera, I have got more light coming into the lens factor itself, and therefore I get a higher quality image that is being recorded onto my camera range. The next thing is our LEDs. So we have a vehicle industry standard LED, which means that my power efficiency is about 90% more than the common multi-cluster CCTV LEDs out there. As you can see, one piece of our LED is equivalent or equal to 30 pieces of the competitor or the standard used LEDs out in the industry. This in turn means that I have lower levels of heat being generated by my LEDs, which means that in the end of the day, I get a better image quality through to my lens and through my chipset, because I don't have a lot of heat noise that is taking away from my camera. We've also got a smart IR to avoid spotlight issues, and we've got a ceramic base and a larger package for better cooling. So basically, the unit itself, it's common for many of the manufacturers to use either a rubber base or a plastic base, or just a piece of double-sided tape in your cheaper variants of cameras out there. And this then doesn't dissipate the heat generated by my products on board, as well as, for instance, a ceramic base does. So the next part is obviously our lens, and as you can see, we've got a 7-layer glass lens with film coated to provide better light penetration. The more light I get into the camera, the better my image quality at the end of the day. Also, we have our cut filters that will turn the infrared filter on and off for nighttime and daytime. And this can withstand up to 100 times switching, so 100,000 times on and off. The integrated lens module is also there to improve the focus, the accuracy and stability of the camera itself. Another quite important factor is the lightning design, or the design that we've got that makes our camera less prone to lightning damage, or for that matter, the spikes in your electrical current. So where our competitors normally run a 3 kV protection, we actually have a 6 kV anti-lighting or double ESD protection, which is a lot better than many of the cheaper manufacturing cameras out there, the cameras that we currently use in the market, and the cheaper brands out there. What we're going to do now is we're going to touch on the products family. We're going to touch on the naming rules. We're going to go through the products that we have on offer and give you a bit more detail on those. So firstly, what we've got is we have both an IP solution and an analog HD solution. The analog HD solution has got your 4-in-1 camera and your 4-in-1 DVR. On the IP solution, we have H.265 cameras and we have H.265 NVRs. So before we start, we've got to look at why the cameras are named in the way that they are and the purpose for this. And we've got camera naming rules, which I'll touch on in the next slide. It's to regulate the management of the product and the technical documents. It also, the naming rules helps for further projects and technical documents of our CCTV. And it is our responsibility in the CCTV department to keep updating and maintaining this naming rule. So now number 4 is the naming rules. So I'm going to touch on the naming rules and how it all works. So firstly, what we have is you will see that For example, we've got an EL32A11A. So the E is for your casting type, or in this case, it's an eyeball or a bullet for B, or a dome D. Then the next part that we have is we've got the mold dimensions, or the size and factor of the unit that you're looking at. So yeah, we have an L for large or an S for small. Number 3, the product type. So we differentiate between the product types between a 3 and a 5, a 3 being the analog or HD, and 5 being our IP range. Then we have number 4, which is our resolution. So in this case, you can see that the camera is a 2 megapixel, or if it's a 4, it's a 4 megapixel, or if we advance further to 5, 6, etc., you will get those in there. So we have an eyeball, large, analog, 2 megapixel. The 5th one, or the solution, that revolves around the lens design. So for us in manufacturing, more than for the client to order, it is the chipset that is being used. Number 7 is our lens. I've got this wrong, but it's fine. So number 7 is the lens. You can see the lens. So you've got a option of a 2.8mm lens, a 3.6mm lens, and an 8mm lens in this range. And then the casting series is also more for manufacturing than for anything else. We also have naming rules for PTZs. So you've got your casting type, P, PTZ, L, large, the product type, which is 5, in this case IP, 3 analog, the resolution or the megapixels, so 2 or 4. We currently have a 2 megapixel in our range. Then we have the resolution factor. So this will be next in line, our IR range and our zoom range. So it's an 18 times zoom. So this is a PTZ large 5 megapixel with 18 times zoom. And I think that's fairly simple in the naming guidelines for people to look at. The same rule applies for our DVRs and our NVRs. So I'm going to go over this quickly. Z being the ZKTeco brand, the product type being 3 or 5, once again, either IP or analog. The number of channels on this particular NVR or DVR, in this case, it's a 4-channel, or you get a 8-channel, or you get a 16-channel, right up to 64-channel currently. You have the video inputs. In the DVR range, you have X being a multi-platform DVR, and I'll touch on that later on. Then your E is your hard disk. So basically how big are hard drives, or how many hard drives we can take. And then your resolution, frame rate, and power. So if it's a P, that means it's got power over Ethernet, and so forth. Once again, it is a manufacturing side, but it is good to know that you look at the products and you go, it's a ZKTeco product, it's an analog DVR, it's a 4-channel DVR, and it's a multi-platform DVR. So those are our naming product guidelines, and I think that gives you an idea later on when we speak about the products more in detail, that you will understand where we're going. So further on to the product range, we have our 3 ranges of cameras. As you can see, we've got an L range, an E range, and a P range in our 4-in-1 HD cameras. So the casing options available to you in the L range, or our entry-level range, we have bullet smalls, eyeball smalls, bullet large, dome large. We have a AHD TVI, which is your Hikvision protocol, CVI, which is your Dahua protocol, CVBS, which is your standard analog protocol or the older analog protocol. In the E range, we have bullet small, eyeball small, dome large, bullet large, and eyeball large, which is the differentiation there. And then in the P range, we've got bullet small, eyeball small, dome large, bullet large, and eyeball large. Once again, all of them have got the 4-in-1 capabilities. The L series is a 2 megapixel or 1080p product. The E series is a 1080p product, and the P series, our high-end product, is a 4 megapixel product range. The sensor sizes, obviously, as we look at the sensors, so the better the camera, the better the sensor. We also have, as I mentioned before, various lens factors. So we have on 2.8, 3.6, 2.8 to 12 mil on your large bullets, your large eyeballs, and your large domes. So the zoom functionality is there. Also see from the horizontal field of view, FOV, what the angle of the lenses are. On the 2.8, you have a much wider angle of your lens than you, for instance, have on your 3.6 lens factor. You also have the ability to have from a very narrow angle to a very wide angle when you choose the manual zoom or the automatic zoom function. Next thing that we speak about is our IR distance. So our IRs is 10 to 20 meters on your standard bullets, and 20 to 30 meters on your eyeballs large and your dome larges. We also have a variant launching soon that can give you up to 80 meters of IR distance. Once again, throughout the range, very much the same, 10 to 20 meters or 20 to 30 meters. As I mentioned before, our entire range is IP67 throughout the entire range. Where do we fit into the market? The L is our entry-level AHD camera. So we're looking at an entry-level price break there as well. Then on the E level, we're looking at people who specifically want a Sony chipset. So that has a Sony chipset. And then lastly, our P range, which is our high-end, or the 4 megapixel, which is our high-end focus. That gives you a good idea of our 4-in-1 analog cameras. Some of the products on the PTZ side, we have mainly for your indoor retail environment, which is a great little 10 times zoom PTZ. Indoor applications, as I said, for retails. It has LED. It's got a 128 presets, which within a small environment is more than enough presets that you can run. Then for our outdoor application, we've got a 60 times infrared unit, 10 times zoom, and also 128 presets. Our 20 times zoom analog PTZ, this is more for the outdoor with up to 120 meters of infrared range. And once again, 128 presets with a 20 times zoom. So 4.7 to 94 mm lens. That should give you good up to 1,000 meters range where I can recognize. Then we have got a analog keyboard support. It supports your Palco D and your Palco P protocols through 485 or 232. It is a 3D joystick, so I can zoom left, right, up, down, and do whatever I require on that. And you've got your pan, tilt, and zoom function on board the PTZ. So from the PTZ range, we cover quite an array of application requirements, together with obviously our previous range of cameras that is available. The DVRs, it's a 5-in-1 DVR. So we have your TVI CVI, CVBS, your analog outputs as per normal, 4-channel up to a 16-channel, 1080N, which is your entry level or not true 1080p unit. You've got a full 1080p unit, and you've got a 4 megapixel unit for when you're using your 4 megapixel cameras. It doesn't help putting a 4 megapixel camera onto a 1080p unit because your resolution is just not going to function well, and you're going to get flicker and loss. So as I said before, 4-channel, 8-channel, and 16-channel. The 16-channel up to 12 frames a second, which is great for general viewing purposes. We do not need real-time resolution when we're looking at an entry-level product, but it gives you good enough frame rates so that I can honestly look at almost any application out there and not miss any footage. Output, I've got an HDMI output and a VGA output on the back of the unit. I have a network port that I can put the unit onto the network and remotely access it. We'll talk a bit later about my apps that I am running. Does it have audio? Yes, it's got audio on 1 channel. And what hard drives can we put in? So we can put up to an 8 terabyte, 1 by 8 terabyte slot in the 4-channel, and up to 2 by 8 terabytes in the 16-channel, and that is throughout the range. So my 4 megapixel up to 2 by 8 terabyte slots in the unit itself. Benefits of using our DVR. As I said before, it's a universal camera support. So I can plug my competing brands into my DVR, and I will be able to automatically pick up the different modes that they are running in. So whether it's an AHD, a TVI, a CVI, CVBS, or an IP signal, I can then pick that up through my DVR. Resolution up to 4 megapixel. So 4 megapixels up to 15 frames a second. Recording is 15 frames a second, and live view at 25 frames a second. I support up to a 4K HDMI output, so I can put a 4K screen on the unit and have the full quality that needs to be put through. It doesn't help having a 4 megapixel camera on the 4 megapixel DVR, but I'm only pushing through to a 1080p screen. I will lose some of my resolution. It supports 8.264 compression. So what that means is H.264 plus. I have a longer recording time at a lower compression, therefore meaning that I have less cost involved with my storage, and that is important as well, because when we are starting to look at a lot of storage space required, then it can become a costly exercise. I've got a friendly GUI or user interface, graphical user interface, that is easy to install. It's an intuitive operation. The operation is so easy that you literally can just scan a code and it has a wizard available to you. We've got bandwidth that we can see, and I've got my streaming optimization. So I can go through my DVR and I can use my settings to optimize my streaming functionalities. Main functions, H.264 and H.264 plus compression, works with the TP chipset. I have, as I mentioned before, I've got my auto detection for whichever mode of camera I'm using. I have got cloud storage and peer-to-peer functionality available on the unit. I support OnVIB-S profiles for my IP cameras. I have got my PC client software, which once again we'll touch on later, either on Windows or on Mac, and we have my mobile application. And we have smart face detection, and search functionality. So very, very, very basic analytics on my AHD units. On the H.265 IP camera range, once again, we've got 3 ranges as we had with the AHD range. We've got our E range, our W range, and our P range. So in our E range and our W range, we've got your 1080p or 2 megapixels available to you. Then we've got 4 megapixel resolution on the P range. The units have varying wide dynamic range. The E series has got an entry level. It's got digital wide dynamic range. The W series has got true wide dynamic range, and the 4 megapixel also has true wide dynamic range. Low light capabilities, because of the Starlight chipset within my W range, I have much better quality low light pictures on the W range, but the P range has got far improved video analytics that is accessible on the camera. Once again, we have a range of lens options, 2.8, 3.6, and a 2.8 to 12 mil throughout our ranges, whether that be the bullets, the eyeballs, or the domes. Once again, you can see my field of view within the lens factors. So from a narrow to a fairly wide angle lens that I can select from. My infrared distances on board the cameras, on the eyeballs and the bullets, 10 to 20 meters on the basics, 20 to 30 meters on the IP, the large form factor domes, the large form factor eyeballs. Throughout, and as I mentioned before, we're launching a 60 to 80 meters. Features, we've got excellent high definition image with wide dynamic range. That's true wide dynamic range. We've got the motorized lens options and IP67 throughout the range. Wide dynamic range with Starlight capabilities due to the chipset that we use on the W range. We have the motorized options available and IP67. And the same goes for the E series, except here we have digital wide dynamic range, not true wide dynamic range. This is our entry-level product. Projects that need true Starlight or once again the Stony chipsets, we will use the W4. And then where you need high resolution, we will use the P range of cameras. So within our cameras, we have got basic IVA, and I'm not going to go too much depth into this right now because that is part of the next training session. We have an option for face detection. We have tripwire invasion. We can check on loitering, retrograding, or the directional that a person may enter or exit an area from. Video quality detection. We've got object loss detection, so we can search for an object that's been removed, or when a object has been left in a specific area, we've got the leftover detection, object left detection. The NVR, as I stated before, is an H.265 NVR. I'll get to the benefits of that shortly. Once again, we've got a PoE range and a non-PoE range, and I will touch on the reasoning behind that now. So when we have a 4-channel up to basically a 32-channel with 16 PoEs, you have a less distributed installation. So it's fine running the cameras off the PoE NVR. We have 4-channel, 8-channel, 16-channel, and a 32-channel option. Hard drive capabilities, 1 times 8 terabytes up to 2 by 8 terabytes. So as you can see, 4 channels with 4-channel PoE, because generally the installation will be close and we can run the network cable from the device. 8 channels, also relatively close. 16 channels, relatively close. 32 channels, we start playing on a distributed net or installation. So I only have 16 channels of PoE on my 32 channel. The other 32 or the other 16 channels will be needing to run off a PoE switch, which we do not supply. Non-PoE NVRs, for this, where you are going to require a distributed or a larger installation, the distances might be a bit further. So you're going to put your field switches, your PoE field switches, closer to the installation points. Once again, 4 channel, 8 channel, 16 channel, 32 channel, and up to 64 channels available. The 64 channel, 16 by 8 terabyte storage available, 8 by 8 terabytes on the 32 channel, down to 1 by 8 terabytes on the 4 channel. As you can also see, this is a 8 megapixel NVR, so we can cater for much higher resolution cameras as well on board. Once again, I have my HDMI and my VGA out, and I have audio out on these units. Now, what is the benefit of having H.265 in your lineup? So basically, I have reduced my storage and my bandwidth by at least 50%, which means that when we look at our competitors still running on H.264, MJPEG, any of these older compression ratios, they will require much more, a much larger bank of hard drives to store the same amount of data. Also, when we are looking at bandwidth usage, I can half the bandwidth usage within my network, which means that I can also run my system on an existing infrastructure without affecting my quality of service too much, which in turn helps to, on your larger projects, to help in cutting costs. We've got a few other benefits that are in the product lineup. We have HLC or highlight compensation. So what we've got is, with highlight compensation on, we do not have that real bright glare from the image as much on the cameras, which means that I can use it better for your vehicle entrances where I have problems with cars light shining at night. We also have a defog option. So as you can see here, with defog off, I cannot really see through the fog and the glare. With defog on, I can see the buildings clearer. I can see what's happening on the other side of the image through the window. So that helps where we have a blurry image, a dusty image, an area with particles in the air. So that is one of the functions that we have. We also have the 2 types of wide dynamic range. We've got the digital wide dynamic range on our entry-level camera, and we've got physical wide dynamic range on our W range and our P range. As you can see, real physical or true wide dynamic range is far better in its image production, that I can see the image on the other side with bright sunlight shining through the door. I am not blinded as much as with no wide dynamic range or with the digital wide dynamic range. You won't really install a digital wide dynamic range camera looking straight out the window, as this is not the general installation processes that will take place. However, with physical wide dynamic range, I am able to see through these bright lights. Now we're going to touch on the mobile app and our video management software, part 3 of our basic training. So the platform that we use is called AntarViz, and AntarViz is when you're buying a DVR and an NVR, you get an installation CD with antivirus that can be loaded onto your laptop for connection. So this is support the central management for both the IP cameras and the NVRs. It supports up to 64 channels with preview synchronizing, 36 channels of playback. We have the video loss, motion detection, privacy mask, and the intelligent perimeter alarm displayed on screen. So various colored blocks will appear depending on your settings. We have the support for the PTZ, so we can put our presets, our tours, and our scans on the PTZs. It supports your 3D positioning and virtual mouse operation. So we do not need a joystick controller to run our PTZs if we run the antivirus. And it supports peer-to-peer login and the cloud functionality. So what does it look like? It's a very friendly graphical user interface. It looks, the antivirus platform takes on the green of the ZKTeco brand. It's modular in design, its functions, and it's layered in its application. So by clicking my right mouse, I can go back to the previous menu. It is, once again, very easy to use and to set up, and this will also then be handled in our next training session, where we will go more into detail on our applications as such. As you can see, we've got our PTZ control, we've got an alarm preview panel, and the output towards a video wall that we can run. I'm not going to go into too much details, as this would take away from my next training. So what have we got on our mobile app? Once again, we've got a very friendly graphical user interface. Supports up to 16 channels on our mobile devices. It supports QR code scanning to add my devices, which means I can use my the app. I can scan the QR code that is displayed on my NVR, and I can connect then seamlessly to the device. It supports local and remote playback for images and devices, so I can store some of the footage on my phone if so needed, or I can just look at what the footage is on the NVR. Supports alarm push functionality, so if there's an alarm on the NVR, I can then support this and push that through to my cell phone and pick these alarms up as a notification. And we support both Android and iOS or iPhone versions. What does it look like? Once again, so I would select my devices. I can log into my devices. I can have a single view or a multi-view of my screens. I can do my playbacks. I can go into my recordings. Really a very easy app to work with. And depending on the quality of your mobile device, nowadays easily 2 megapixels up viewing on the cameras. So really good quality mobile app. Where we have antivirus on our PC platform, we have the app antiView on our mobile app. As I said, we've got your device management, so I can log into a multiple number of devices. I've got live view. I can see my playback on the unit. I can see the events. I can use it as a remote. We've got our event sharing. So what is going to happen? We can push events through to the mobile app, and I can see what events has taken place on the app. Once again, I'm not going to go into too much detail. This will be covered in our next training session. Playback, I can select time, date, cameras. individual cameras or multiple of cameras, and a mixture of live and recorded. So really, really nice application to run from your mobile app. Once again, because I'm running H.265 as my streaming, I will also use less data when looking at my mobile applications. Lastly, our products are compatible with biosecurity. So where we have our biosecurity, ZK biosecurity running on our access control platform, I can select my OnViv cameras or my AHD recorder. I can then, through my devices, whereby let's say we have a access control event taking place, somebody is scanning their card or a finger or their face at a device, let's say at a turnstile, and I want the footage to be brought onto biosecurity, I can send this through to biosecurity. So I can send an image or a small video clip on biosecurity. I can also search when, for instance, Edward has scanned in at a certain device, and an image clip will then accompany that search. You've got a selection. Currently supported is obviously our ZK brand. We support Dawa. We support Hikvision natively in our biosecurity, and it's very simple to add these linkages to our cameras. You will basically give the device IP address, link it to the port, and link it to your reader in this case, and it will link the camera to the reader. So I'd like to thank you for joining me for my first ZKTeco CCTV training. If you have any questions that you have not placed on the panel itself, please feel free to email me at edward@zkteco.co.za, and I will answer all your questions. You can also contact us through the support at ZKTeco or sales at ZKTeco. Thank you very much, and that is the end of our training for today.